Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Sitting in a Car videocast. I'm Sarah Sproul, and I'm here answering another question about sexuality, parenting, and our kids. So the question from this week is, I'm comfortable speaking with my children in general, but how should I respond to things they hear from their friends that I disagree with? Such a great question, because I think the idea behind this question is that we want to maintain connection with our kids. We want to have conversations with them, but sometimes they pick things up from the world around them and the people around them that may either actually be factually incorrect or is displaying a value that we don't agree with. So the first thing I would say to the person asking this question is that first of all, before you sort of comment on the thing that you think is inaccurate or that you don't agree with, is to really listen to what your kid is saying. And not just listen to what they're saying, but actually show them and make them feel like you're listening. So those are two separate things: listening and making our kid feel like they are listened to. So if they are telling me something, then I can respond with clarifying questions or with reflections. So if my kid says, we were talking at school today and Marike said that when people are naked, that's a really bad thing and everyone should wear clothes all the time. Something like that, okay? And I'll go, a reflection of that would be, all right, so you were talking about naked bodies. And usually when you reflect something that your kid is saying, then they will continue on, because it's sort of just a natural thing. They'll say, it was about being naked on the beach in the south of France, for example. And then you can ask another question. Does your friend know about the south of France? And so you get a little bit more information and a bit of more information. Then you might say to your kid, and what do you think about what they said? So you can get a bit of information that way. And then when it comes to when you feel like you've done a really good job of listening and you feel like your kid really feels heard, then you can say something like this: I'm not sure I agree with what they said. And your kid might ask you to say more about it, or your kid might say, well, I definitely agree with them. And then you can say something like, it's interesting, isn't it, how people have different values or different opinions about the same thing. So, for example, your friend thinks that being naked is not okay and people should wear clothes. And the people in south of France think that being naked is perfectly fine, and they have sort of different rules about that than the country we live in, and they go naked on the beach. So you could point out that it's not just you that has the difference of opinion, it's also the people who are involved in the original story. Okay? And then if you really want to be clear that your value is different, you couch that in language that makes it very clear that this is your value, okay? And you're not saying the whole world should agree with what you're saying. And the reason why we do that is because we are raising individual human beings who are also going to grow up with their own values and ideas around particular things. And if you know anything about my service, The Talk is about making sure that connection is maintained while we have these conversations with our kid about sexuality. And the way we do that is we constantly demonstrate that we have a tolerance and an awareness that each and every person in the world is different to each other. So that concept is called diversity. Sometimes when you hear the word diversity, when you think about sexuality, your mind might go to the idea of someone who is gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or some other sort of diversity in that respect. But when I am talking about it in the context of these conversations, I'm also talking about diversity in terms of our different value judgments about different behaviors. And we can have a whole range of different value judgments and different ideas or different understandings of what is reasonable behavior for us and for the people around us and what is not. So just remember that the young person you are raising is soon going to be growing up into an adult, and you want, if at all possible, to create an environment where people are able to talk about what they understand, the way they understand the world, how they feel about it, and the values that they have on themselves. And you want to be able people to do that in your family environment. And if you start developing a culture of, I believe this, therefore everyone in my family needs to believe this, then you're going to shut your kids' ability to have conversations about their own values down. Because nobody wants to have a conversation with someone who is constantly telling them they're wrong. All right. So back to the original question, how do we respond to things that our kids are talking about that they hear from someone else that we don't agree with? You listen, you get further information, then you phrase it in a, I'm not sure I agree with it way. You point out that there are lots of people all over the world that have differences of opinion about this one particular thing. And then you state that for you, what's right for you in that instance, and then you state what's right for you. So in this case, if you do like nude sunbathing in the south of France, then you would say, well, for me, I actually do like that, but I can understand that other people don't like it. And then you leave that with your kid and you give them a chance to think about that. And that's the question for this week, sitting in a car for parents thinking about sexuality and how to have conversations about it with their kid. I'll see you next week.